Hello, welcome back to the loft. So I've not been in here for a while and I've had to give it a really good tidy up. So you guys have been dropping me comments on my videos of late to say you would like a shop tour. So it's one thing I've been putting off because usually it's quite a mess up here, but I've just had a really good tidy up. So it's probably an ideal time just to give you a look around the loft and explain to you how I use this space. Just a little bit of history of this. This obviously is the loft of the house. It's just a modern semi-detached house in the UK. It's not very big, but it's bigger than a shed. It's a little bit restricted in here because of the roof trusses. So in terms of sizing, the whole thing is around about 14 foot long, and the usable space to stand up in is just over 7 foot wide. It's the size of a decent shed. There's a truss rafter which kind of gets in the way every now and again, although I own my cat sensors and actually I don't bang into them that often. But it does have some advantages which I'll show you as we go through. So even though I've used this space in the loft for various things, including storage, as most people use their loft spaces for, what was a real game changer is 2 years ago I fitted a roof window. It was just a cheap roof window. I think it cost about £100, and it just lets so much light in. Before that, of course, it was completely dark in here. Probably doesn't make the space any more usable, but it certainly makes it much more pleasurable just being up here with some natural daylight and some ventilation. Now it does get crazily hot in here during the summer, so much so that some days it's just unbearable and unworkable up here. So I do tend to work down in the garden when that's the case, but because I've got my machinery up here, I just have to pop back up here just to cut something and just bear the heat. So the window and a couple of fans to circulate the air certainly make a massive difference to the usability of the area. Now, because this is the family space, I do have to share the space with storage for things like Christmas decorations, camping equipment. It's not all woodworking. There is some storage up here. That probably takes up about half of the space. So in addition to the extra light with the Velux, I also have some LED lights. At the moment I have 4. There's one there on the end, and then there's 3 down at this end. I do find that these ones give off a lot more light than these ones. I think these are rated at about 25 watts. They're all LED, and these give off 50. So I've actually bought another couple of these from eBay. And then, other than lighting, the loft actually has its own power supply. So it's wired directly from the consumer unit to a small consumer unit up here, and then I have 5 power outlets wired up here. So pretty much I can plug in anything that I want anywhere. And I think lastly, in a really small space, everything I now have is on that's movable is on wheels, which makes a massive difference. I do find that I have to reconfigure the space for every project. So first thing when I make a project is, so I need the workshop set out to do that project. It means I can move the saw from one end to another, I can move the router, I can move the bench, I just move them all around out of the way when I don't need them. And I'll show you a little bit more about that in a minute. So just looking around the loft in terms of what's here and how the layout is, with it being a loft, and this is the biggest issue I have in terms of space, is I just have a normal loft access, just slightly less than 600 wide, which is the space between the 2 roof trusses, and I have widened it slightly the other direction, so my clear opening is about 22 inch by about 30, so I can't make anything in here that won't fit through there. So unfortunately that's discounted boat building. Every project I make, I have to work out how I'm going to get it through that hole, or how much of the project I can build and what components I can build up, and then ship it out downstairs and then complete the task down there. Every time I go to the timber shop, I always end up coming away with a couple of lengths of floorboarding. Pretty much everything I have in is made of that. So the benches, which are just suspended between the trusses, are are a frame with tongue and groove floorboarding, and I've also extended the floor. Now the centre of the floor, there actually is a carpet on the floor, which is the old lounge carpet cut down, and right underneath the lounge carpet the floor was bordered by the house constructors, because when I first got the house there was a water tank up here, so the truss rafters was bordered for the tank stand and the plumbing system, which is no longer here because we've changed plumbing systems. So I keep buying floorboards and extending the floor away from the centre just to create more space. Coming up from the loft access, my Polk bench there, which is a little bit obsolete now, but I still do take it out into the garden. There is still 3 pieces of chipboard left, which was the old work desks. Some offcuts there, which was the actual purlins that I removed from the mother-in-law's conservatory roof that we did at Easter. The first sort of tool I have here is my DeWalt saw in a little crosscut jig. I bought this saw and made this jig before I bought the bench saw, so it was my first saw. So I made this, and then I also made a little track saw for it as well. Actually done quite a lot of work with that, with cross-cutting and cutting things to length. There's a little bit more storage there. There's a little bit of camera gadgetry there, and then I've got a nice shelf with some tools on. It's my jigsaw there. There's actually a couple of flooring pedestals there, which I was actually keeping so I could make a router lift with them, so whether I will do that I don't know. There's the TV aerial. There is a selection of these, are mostly my older tools or things I don't use very often, although my biscuit jointer's in there and I do really like my biscuit jointer. There's my first router. There's 3 or 4 cheaper screw guns in there. And then on the shelf underneath there's various paints and glues and bits and pieces under there. Now at this end of the loft, when they're not being used, I have my circular saw on the cabinet I made, and then just at the moment in the cabinet there is all my screws, bolts, fixings and various other little bits and pieces that go with the saw. And at the moment there is a load of sliding drawer runners there, which again is salvage off the work desks. There's my crosscut sled there. And then at the moment there's my bandsaw there, which is actually just on a trolley, and that's a job to do actually, to make a cart. At the moment I just wheel it out and just kneel on the floor to do any bandsawing, but I will make another cart for that that'll lift it up so the table is round about the same height as the table saw table. But that's a future project, and one probably you'll get to see over the next few months. And then in squirreled away in the corner down here is all my basically timber storage, plywood, MDF, and this is the bit that I've just tidied out. I've probably just lost a body weight in offcuts out of the loft. Across here, this was my first bench I built when I first moved up here, which is actually an MDF bench with a couple of 6x1s on the edges. So this is kind of becomes my main storage area, and this is the bit that does get out of control. And this is where I mount my mitre saw on here. I have a little cantilevered stand with a sliding gauge on, so I cut my pieces of wood to that, and this cantilever's over the edge of the bench in exactly the same way as the Evolution saw does, just to clear the rafters, to make sure there's no clashing there. And actually this can be left or right-handed. I think you've seen that in a couple of my videos how I've swapped that over. I've got my pillar drill here, which is a tool I've not yet used. My wife bought it for my birthday last year, and as yet I haven't had a project for it, but I do have 2 projects coming up that I will be using that. So pretty much it's out of the box. I've not actually tightened the pillar to the base yet properly, but that will be getting some use. Hopefully that's it's a decent buy. I think they're about £49 from Screwfix, so hopefully for what it costs it'll just do a little job. The side and the back is floorboarding again. Now there's a bit of a gap there because I've been known to a few times to buy floorboarding for the floor or for the just to complete the benches, and then halfway through a project run out of a piece of timber and end up taking it back off the bench or taking it up off the floor and cutting it down just to finish a project. So it's even though it's the floorboarding is really useful to stand on, it also is a good way just to store material and remove it when you need to. But it's probably a bit of a faff. Then under the bench is pretty much my standard hand tool storage. Now these are still a little bit messy, and I'm going to make some more of these, but basically I just made a frame and a box that slides in between the roof trusses, and then I've got some drawers that sit in this space with my hand tools. And actually these are double, so I actually pull that drawer out, there's another drawer behind it. So and these are all a uniform size, which actually my idea is if I move from here I can just pick the old drawer up and just take it out. And then under here there's a bit more storage for timber. It's quite empty at the moment because I've just had the tidy out. And then under there is the jigs for my thicknesser that I used when I made the video about shaping on the thicknesser. The router table just nicely slides under the bench, and I can pull it out, so that's out of the way when I'm not using it. And the fence down there for it. And then next to that is my workbench. So the bench being 32-inch tall, I think just the right height for me, and also because of the triangular nature of the loft space. The lower the bench, actually the easier it is to turn it round. And then under the bench at the moment, which is just loose, is my Triton planer. Mount the planer under there permanently, so that slides out of the way with the bench. And so I'm hoping that works. I might show that on a future video as well when I get round to it. And then outside of that and right at the end is my Triton sander and my DeWalt orbital sander. And then under there is my Titan dust bucket and my shop vac under there. And that's actually one of the first videos I ever made is of the use of that, and actually it's doing quite well on YouTube at the moment. So if you've been watching that, thank you, and if you've not, go and have a look. At the end I've got an old TV. This was the old TV I took out the lounge. It's just nice to have a TV up here. I usually work up here and watch a bit of YouTube when quieter moments when I've not got the machinery going. And under there I have my little stool that I move around and sit on. Then there's all my various hoses. I've actually got 3 hoses that I move around. I can vacuum the entire shop from this location. And then at the moment at this end I've got my T-stack box there, which is the box that my circular saw came in. And at the moment I've got my Trend aero helmet in there. And also these boxes are useful when I'm working out here. I can just load them up with tools and take them out with me. Now there's a couple of pieces of oak there, and if you saw my video the other week about my other workshop, and I explained that I'd some oak trunks up to actually make some posts to repair the barn, that's a couple of pieces of the same oak. I actually brought it here and seasoned it, and there's a couple of things I want to do with that, but I just never get round to doing it. But again, might be a future project. And then behind there's a piece of plywood, which was the setting out for the garden obelisk, which is by far my most popular video. And I do have a new gardening build video coming soon, so maybe that'll be as popular, I hope. And then at this end, once we're around the corner, pretty much under the bench here is just storage. And then I have my other T-stack boxes, which is kind of my sort of day-to-day toolbox. If I just nip out somewhere, I usually take that with me. And as I was saying earlier, there is some advantages of being in the truss, is that actually I can fix all my clamps and things to the rafters, so pretty much they're all spread out around the loft. And then in the back there I've got this workbench here. I've got my Kreg pocket old jig. I have to say I do love that, and I know it's the very Marmite are pocket old jigs, and I did manage to get through the first 50 years of my life without using one, but now I've got one I do enjoy it. And behind that there's a 10-inch jig for my circular saw. This pile of wood here is for my next project. This is all offcuts that I've actually dug out while I've been tidying up, so some of this is going to get cut down and planed down just to regularize it to the size I want, and hopefully maybe in another couple of weeks there'll be a new video. Thank you for watching. I hope that was interesting. If you like what you've seen, please give me a thumbs up. Think I could do anything differently, or if you've got any ideas that maybe I've not considered, then drop me a comment below. And if you've not subscribed to my channel and you'd like to do so, then please do that. It does help me and motivate me to make more videos for you guys. And until my next video, bye.